You do not send tanks into mountain passes without infantry support. This is not tactical preference. This is doctrine. This is the lesson written in blood across 100 battlefields from the Great War to the Spanish Civil War. Armor without infantry is a target. Armor in narrow terrain is a coffin. Every tank commander in Europe knows this in January 1941. The Germans know it. The British know it. The French learned it the hard way in 1940. And the Italians certainly know it, because Italy has studied armor warfare as closely as any nation. Italian theorists have written extensively about the proper employment of mechanized forces. Italian officers have observed the German blitzkrieg in Poland and France. They understand that tanks need room to maneuver. They understand that tanks need infantry to clear obstacles and suppress anti-tank weapons. This is not speculation. This is established military science. Tanks are powerful when used correctly. Tanks are devastating when combined with infantry and artillery in open terrain, where they can exploit their mobility and firepower. But send your tanks charging up narrow mountain passes ahead of your infantry, and they will die. Every general staff in Europe agrees on this fundamental truth. In January 1941, Italy is about to test this truth in the mountains of southern Albania. For 5 months, Italy has been fighting Greece. What Benito Mussolini promised would be a 3-week conquest has turned into a humiliating disaster. Greek forces have not only stopped the Italian invasion, they have driven Italian armies 30 to 50 kilometers back into Albanian territory. Towns Italy controlled for years are now in Greek hands. Italian divisions that crossed into Greece in October 1940 are fleeing north by December. Mussolini's prestige lies in tatters. Hitler mocks him. The Italian people question him. His generals doubt him publicly. But Mussolini has a plan to restore Italian honor. A new offensive, new equipment, and at the center of this offensive, Italy's newest weapon, the M13/40 medium tank. The M13/40 is Italy's pride. It is the best tank Italy has ever produced. Delivered to Albanian ports in December 1940, fresh from Ansaldo factories in northern Italy, the M13/40 represents everything modern about Italian armor doctrine. It weighs 13.5 tons. It is powered by a 125-horsepower diesel engine, a technological innovation many nations have yet to adopt. Diesel engines offer longer range, lower fuel costs, and reduced fire risk compared to gasoline engines. This is genuinely advanced thinking for 1940. It carries a 47mm main gun capable of penetrating 45mm of armor at 500 meters. This gun is more powerful than the weapons mounted on most British cruiser tanks. It is sufficient to destroy any light or medium tank in the British or Greek inventory. The M13/40 has armor 30mm thick on the hull front and 42mm on the turret front. This is not heavy by German standards, but it is respectable. It is enough to stop machine gun fire and resist light anti-tank weapons at medium range. The tank features Italy's first hydraulically operated turret, full 360-degree traverse, a crew of 4, driver, machine gunner, commander, and loader. Maximum speed of 32 kilometers per hour on roads. But on paper, the M13/40 is a formidable weapon. Italian tank crews are confident. Italian commanders are optimistic. This is the tank that will finally give Italy the armored punch it needs to break Greek resistance. In late December 1940, dozens of M13/40 tanks are unloaded at Albanian ports and assigned to Italy's 131st Armored Division Centauro. Named after the mythological centaur, half man, half horse, the Centauro Division is Italy's premier armored formation. 4,000 men, multiple tank battalions supporting artillery and infantry. And now, equipped with brand new M13/40 tanks, the Centauro Division is ready to prove Italian armor doctrine in battle. Italian Supreme Commander Ugo Cavallero has identified the strategic objective: recapture Klisura Pass. Klisura Pass is a narrow mountain defile in southern Albania, approximately 1,000 meters elevation, located 20 kilometers north of the town of Klisura. The pass controls the road network connecting the Albanian interior to the port of Vlora. Whoever holds Klisura controls logistics for the entire Epirus sector. Greek forces captured Klisura in early January after weeks of grinding advances through Albanian mountains. Now, Italian forces must take it back. Cavallero's plan is straightforward. Use the M13/40 tanks of the Centauro Division to spearhead a counterattack. The tanks will advance through the pass, break through Greek defensive positions, and open the way for Italian infantry to recapture the surrounding heights. It is a bold plan. It requires armor to do what armor is designed to do: provide mobile firepower and shock action to shatter enemy defenses. There is one problem. Klisura Pass is not open terrain. It is a narrow mountain corridor. Steep slopes on both sides, rising at 40 to 60-degree angles. Limited maneuver space. A single road winding through the defile. Perfect ground for defenders with anti-tank weapons and artillery. Italian officers recognize this challenge. Some voice concerns. One staff officer points out that tanks advancing through such restricted terrain will be vulnerable to flanking fire from Greek positions on the heights above the pass. But Italian command is confident. The M13/40 is new. The M13/40 is powerful. The M13/40 has never been tested in battle. Surely, the shock of encountering Italian armor for the first time will demoralize Greek defenders. And there is political pressure. Mussolini demands results. The offensive cannot be delayed. On January 6, 1941, the Centauro Division moves into position opposite Klisura Pass. Greek intelligence observes the Italian build-up. Greek commanders recognize the threat. They understand that if Italian tanks break through at Klisura, the entire Greek advance into Albania could collapse. Greek Second Army Corps, commanded by Lieutenant General Dimitrios Papadopoulos, holds the Klisura sector. The corps consists of 3 infantry divisions: the 1st Infantry Division, the 11th Infantry Division, and the newly arrived 5th Infantry Division, composed primarily of Cretan troops rushed forward from reserve positions. These are not elite mechanized formations. These are Greek foot soldiers, farmers and shepherds mobilized in October. Men in their 20s, 30s, and 40s carrying bolt-action rifles and manning artillery pieces designed in the early 1900s. But these Greek soldiers have been winning since November. They stopped the Italian invasion at the Calamus River. They counterattacked and drove Italy back into Albania. They captured town after town through brutal winter, fighting in snow and ice. And now, in January 1941, they hold Klisura Pass. Greek defensive positions are anchored on the heights above the pass. Artillery batteries are positioned to cover the road. Machine gun nests overlook the approaches. Infantry trenches line the slopes. Greek artillery includes 75mm mountain guns and field pieces. These are not modern anti-tank weapons. They are indirect fire artillery designed to support infantry attacks. But Greek gunners have been fighting in these mountains for months. They know the ranges. They know the terrain. They know how to drop shells precisely where they are needed. On January 6th, Italian forces begin their attack. It is January 6th, 1941. Winter in the Albanian mountains. Snow covers the peaks. Temperatures drop below freezing at night. The roads are mud and ice. For 3 months, Greece has been at war with Italy. And for 3 months, Greece has been winning. This fact astonishes the world. When Italy invaded Greece on October 28, 1940, every military analyst predicted swift Italian victory. Italy had a population 3 times larger than Greece. Italy had a modern mechanized army with tanks and aircraft. Italy controlled Albania, giving them a staging ground directly on Greece's northern border. Greece had a small army of reservists and outdated equipment. Greece had almost no tanks. Greece had limited air support. The invasion should have succeeded in weeks. Instead, Greek forces stopped the Italian advance cold at the Calamus River and in the Pindus Mountains. Then, beginning November 14th, Greece counterattacked. Greek divisions drove north into Albanian territory. They captured the towns of Korça and Gjirokastër. They pushed Italian forces back 30 to 50 kilometers from the Greek border. By early January 1941, Greece controls 1/4 of Albania. This is the first Allied land victory of World War II. The first time any nation has successfully resisted Axis aggression and counterattacked. British Prime Minister Winston Churchill calls it the first Axis setback of the entire war. But victory has costs. The Greek army is exhausted. 3 months of continuous mountain warfare in winter conditions has depleted Greek strength. Ammunition is running low. Supplies are limited. Reinforcements are scarce. Many Greek soldiers are suffering from frostbite, exposure, and malnutrition. And Greek intelligence knows that Italy is massing forces for a counter-offensive. Italian strength in Albania has grown to 28 divisions, over 500,000 men. Italy has brought in fresh units from Libya and the Italian mainland. They have replaced losses. They have improved logistics. And critically, Italy has introduced new equipment, the M13/40 medium tank. Greek forces have never faced Italian armor in significant numbers. The few Italian tanks deployed in the initial invasion were light tankettes, L3/35 vehicles weighing less than 4 tons, armed only with machine guns. Greek infantry captured or destroyed dozens of these vehicles without much difficulty. The M13/40 is something entirely different. It is 3 times heavier than the L3. It carries a real anti-tank gun capable of destroying fortifications and penetrating armor. It has armor thick enough to resist rifle fire and light artillery. It represents a quantum leap in Italian armored capability. Greek soldiers know this. Greek commanders know this. And they know that if Italian tanks break through at Klisura Pass, the entire Greek position in southern Albania could unravel. So Greek forces prepare. The 1st Infantry Division holds the northern sector of Klisura Pass. These are veterans, men who have been fighting since October. They know the terrain intimately. The 11th Infantry Division holds the center. This division includes units that distinguished themselves in the capture of Korça. Their morale is high. Their officers are experienced. The 5th Infantry Division, fresh Cretan troops, holds the southern approaches. These men have just arrived from Crete, but Cretans have a fierce reputation. They are known for their courage, their marksmanship, and their willingness to close with the enemy in hand-to-hand combat. These divisions have been digging defensive positions since capturing the pass in early January. Trenches, machine gun nests, artillery emplacements, observation posts on the heights overlooking the road. Greek artillery units position their guns carefully. They select firing positions with clear fields of fire covering the road. They measure distances precisely. They pre-register target coordinates, marking specific points on the road where shells will land if the gunners fire at pre-calculated elevation and traverse settings. 75mm mountain guns are light, portable weapons designed to be disassembled and transported by mule. They are not designed as anti-tank weapons. They fire high-explosive shells in high arcs for indirect fire support. But Greek gunners understand that in narrow terrain, even indirect fire weapons can be deadly against armor. If you can drop a 75mm high-explosive shell directly onto a tank, the concussive force and shrapnel will damage vision ports, disable tracks, kill exposed crew members, and potentially penetrate thinner top armor. The key is precision. The key is knowing the ranges. The key is discipline. Greek artillery officers brief their crews. When the Italian tanks come, wait for them to enter the kill zone. Do not fire prematurely. Let them advance deep into the pass where they cannot maneuver. Then concentrate fire. Multiple guns on single targets. Overwhelm the enemy with volume of fire. Greek infantry receive similar instructions. Hold your positions. Do not panic when you see tanks. Trust the artillery. If tanks reach your trenches, attack them with grenades and Molotov cocktails. Aim for tracks and vision ports. The Greek defensive plan is simple. Use the terrain. Channel Italian armor into the narrow pass where their mobility advantage is negated. Destroy the tanks with concentrated artillery fire from dominating heights. Let the mountains do half the work. On January 6th, Italian forces begin probing attacks. Small units testing Greek defenses. Greek forces respond with limited fire. They do not reveal the full extent of their artillery. This is deliberate. Greek commanders want Italy to commit their armor. They want the M13/40 tanks to advance deep into the pass, because once those tanks are in the kill zone, they will be trapped. Italian command interprets Greek restraint as weakness. Italian officers believe Greek morale is fragile. They believe one good push, one armored spearhead, will break Greek resistance. On January 7th, Italian artillery begins a preparatory bombardment. Shells fall on suspected Greek positions. The barrage continues for hours. Greek soldiers crouch in their trenches and bunkers. Some positions take direct hits. Casualties mount, but the Greek defensive line holds. On January 8th, Italy escalates. More artillery, more probing attacks. Italian infantry attempts to advance. Greek machine guns and rifles drive them back. Italian Supreme Commander Ugo Cavallero makes a decision. Commit the armor. Send in the M13/40 tanks of the Centauro division. Break through at Klisura Pass. End this stalemate. Orders go out to the Centauro division tank battalions. Prepare for assault. Objective: Klisura Pass. Method: frontal attack up the road through the pass. Tank crews receive their briefings. Commanders study maps. Drivers check engines. Gunners load ammunition. 104 rounds of 47mm shells per tank. The M13/40 tanks are ready, fresh from the factory. Never fired in anger. Crews are confident. One Italian tank commander asks about the terrain. He points out that the pass is narrow. He asks if infantry will be advancing alongside the tanks. His battalion commander assures him the infantry will follow. First, the tanks break through. Then, infantry secures the heights. The tank commander nods. He returns to his vehicle. He does not know that the infantry will not be able to keep pace. He does not know that the tanks will be advancing alone through a kilometer-long kill zone. On the night of January 8th to 9th, Italian tank crews sleep fitfully. Some write letters home, some pray, most simply wait for dawn. Greek artillery crews sleep in shifts near their guns. Ammunition is stacked beside each piece. Fire missions are planned. Coordinates are confirmed one last time. Greek infantry check their rifles, fix bayonets. They wait in their trenches, waiting for the Italian armor. January 9th, 1941. Dawn breaks cold and grey over Klisura Pass. Fog lies in the valley. At 0600 hours, Italian artillery opens fire. Another preparatory bombardment. Shells scream overhead and detonate on Greek positions. At 0700 hours, the bombardment lifts. Silence falls over the pass. Greek soldiers tense. They know what is coming. At 0710 hours, the first M13/40 tanks of the 131st Armored Division Centauro begin moving forward. The M13/40 tanks advance in column up the road toward Klisura Pass. Think about what this looks like. A narrow dirt road carved into a mountainside, steep slopes rising on both sides. Visibility limited by terrain and morning fog. And into this constricted space, Italian armor drives forward in single file. The lead tank is commanded by a lieutenant, whose name has been lost to history. He sits in the cramped turret, head and shoulders exposed through the commander's hatch, scanning ahead with binoculars. The cold morning air bites at his face. The tank's diesel engine roars. 125 horsepower, driving 13.5 tons of riveted steel. The sound is deafening, a deep, rumbling roar that echoes off the mountainsides. The tracks bite into the frozen mud and grind forward. Inside the hull, the driver wrestles the steering wheel. Visibility is poor through his limited vision port. He follows the tank ahead, trying not to veer off the road. In the turret, the gunner sits beside the 47mm gun. The loader waits with shells ready. The interior smells of oil, diesel fumes, and sweat. The column advances slowly, 20 kilometers per hour on the rough mountain road. At 1,000 meters from Greek positions, the tanks are still approaching. The fog is beginning to lift. Visibility improves. Greek observers on the heights above the pass watch through field glasses. They are positioned in concealed observation posts. They count vehicles. 12 tanks, 15, 20. The column is long. A Greek artillery officer notes the lead tank's position. He calculates range and angle. He waits. At 900 meters, the lead Italian tank is clearly visible. The white cross painted on the hull stands out against the grey steel. Still, the Greek artillery holds fire. At 800 meters, more tanks enter the pass. The column is strung out along a kilometer of road. Vehicles are spaced 30 to 40 meters apart. But in this terrain, there is nowhere to go. The road is bordered by steep slopes. Off-road movement is impossible. The tanks must stay on the road. They must advance in column. They are committed now. At 700 meters, a Greek forward observer radios coordinates to the artillery batteries. Range 700 meters. Target, lead vehicle. All batteries stand by. Fire on my command. Greek artillery crews adjust their guns. Elevation, traverse. The gunners sight through their aiming stakes. The gun layers confirm settings. Loaders stand ready with shells. At 600 meters, the lead Italian tank is deep in the pass. Behind it, 19 more vehicles follow in column. The Greek artillery officer makes his decision. All batteries, fire. The first 75mm shell arcs through the air. 3 seconds of flight time. Impact. The high-explosive shell detonates on the road 5 meters short of the tank. The explosion is massive. A flash of flame, a cloud of smoke, dirt and rocks thrown into the air. Shrapnel pings off the M13/40's frontal armor. The Italian tank commander ducks. He scans for the source of fire. He sees nothing. Greek artillery positions are hidden in the heights. He orders his driver forward. The tank accelerates. Speed is survival. The Greek artillery officer observes the fall of shot, short by 5 meters. He calls a correction. Add 50 meters. All batteries fire for effect. Now all the Greek artillery batteries open fire together. 12 75mm guns positioned on the heights, firing as fast as crews can load. 6 rounds per minute per gun. 72 shells per minute falling on a kilometer of road. The sound is overwhelming. The guns bark and recoil. Spent shell casings clang. Loaders grab fresh shells, slam them into breaches. Gunners fire. The rhythm becomes mechanical. Load, fire, load, fire. The lead Italian tank takes a direct hit on the turret roof. The explosion is devastating. The blast tears away external equipment. The cupola hatch is blown off. Shrapnel rakes the turret top. The commander is killed instantly. His corpse slumps into the turret. Inside, the gunner is stunned by the concussion. Blood from the dead commander drips onto him. The loader is bleeding from shrapnel wounds. The driver cannot see through vision ports covered in smoke and debris. The tank slews sideways as the disoriented driver loses control. It stops, partially blocking the road. Behind it, the second tank tries to maneuver around the stalled lead vehicle. The road is barely wide enough for one tank. Another Greek shell lands directly in front of it. The explosion craters the road. The tank's right track runs into the crater and comes off the drive sprocket. The vehicle lurches to a halt, immobilized. The third tank is now blocked by 2 disabled vehicles. It cannot advance. It cannot retreat. There are 17 tanks behind it. Greek artillery shifts fire systematically. Now shells are falling along the entire length of the column. Italian tanks are trapped. Tank commanders button up their hatches. They order drivers to reverse. But reversing in column on a narrow mountain road is nearly impossible. The drivers cannot see behind them. Tanks collide with the vehicles behind them. Tracks slip on the icy road. Engines stall. Some Italian tank commanders try to turn their vehicles around. But the road is too narrow. The M13/40 has a turning radius of approximately 4.5 meters. In this confined space, there is no room to execute the maneuver. Tanks attempting to turn end up stuck at angles, blocking the road even further. Greek artillery continues firing. The gunners are now in a rhythm. Load, fire, load, fire. The barrels heat up from continuous firing. Shells land on tank hulls, on turret tops, on engine decks. The M13/40's armor is strongest on the front, but top armor is much thinner. 15 millimeters on the hull top, only 6 millimeters on the engine deck. A 75mm high explosive shell landing on the thin engine deck will penetrate. The explosion ruptures fuel lines. Diesel fuel ignites. Black smoke pours from the engine compartment. Flames spread. Crew members bail out. They leap from their burning tanks and run for cover. Some are cut down by Greek rifle fire. Greek infantry in trenches on the slopes above the road have clear fields of fire. They shoot at exposed Italian tank crews. Rifles crack. Machine guns chatter. The running Italian crew members drop one by one. One Italian tank commander near the rear tries to reverse carefully. Greek observers spot the movement. Artillery fire shifts. Shells bracket the reversing tank. A third hits directly on the turret. The tank stops immediately. Smoke pours from the turret hatches. The crew does not emerge. In the center of the column, an Italian tank crew decides to abandon their vehicle before it is hit. They pop the hatches and scramble out. All 4 crew members evacuate. They run downhill off the road. Greek infantry open fire. The running Italian crew members drop one by one. None reach cover. Some Italian tanks attempt to fight back. Turrets traverse. 47mm guns fire high explosive shells at suspected Greek artillery positions. But the Greek guns are positioned hundreds of meters above the road. The Italian tanks cannot elevate their guns high enough to engage targets on the steep slopes 300 meters above them. The M13/40's main gun has plus 20 degrees of elevation. To fire at positions 300 meters higher requires an elevation angle the gun mount simply cannot achieve. The geometry is impossible. Italian gunners fire anyway. Shells detonate against hillsides, but Greek artillery crews continue firing. They are dug in. They have overhead cover. The battle becomes a massacre. Italian tanks burn. Flames spread as ammunition inside the tanks begins to cook off. 47mm shells detonate inside burning tanks. Internal blasts blow turrets completely off the hulls. Turrets weighing over a ton are thrown meters into the air. Secondary explosions scatter debris across the pass. Italian infantry, following several hundred meters behind the tanks, halts their advance. Officers order their men to take cover. There is nothing the infantry can do. They cannot suppress Greek artillery from the valley floor. They cannot climb the steep slopes quickly enough to reach the Greek guns. They can only watch helplessly as the Centauro division's armor burns. By 0900 hours, 2 hours after the attack began, over a dozen M13/40 tanks are destroyed or disabled on the Klisura Pass road. Smoke rises from burning vehicles. The road is blocked by wrecks. Craters make the road impassable. Italian command receives reports of the disaster. Officers cannot believe it. The M13/40 was supposed to be invincible. How could Greek forces destroy so many tanks so quickly? But the mathematics are simple and brutal. 12 Greek artillery pieces firing 6 rounds per minute equals 72 shells per minute. Over 2 hours, over 8,000 shells fired. In terrain where tanks cannot maneuver, where they must advance in single file, even a low hit rate is catastrophic. The Italian attack at Klisura Pass on January 9th is a complete failure. Italian command is stunned. Italian morale plummets. Italian tank crews who survived are traumatized. Some refuse to get back into their vehicles. But Italy does not give up. On January 10th, Italy tries again. This time, infantry advances first. Battalions of the Giulia Alpine Division and the Lupi di Toscana Division climb the slopes toward Greek trenches. These are elite troops trained for mountain warfare. Greek defenders meet them with rifle and machine gun fire. The fighting is brutal. Hand-to-hand combat erupts in the trenches. Grenades, bayonets. Men grapple and stab. Italian infantry suffers heavy casualties but makes progress. Some Greek positions are overrun. Italian troops gain footholds on the heights, but Greek reinforcements counterattack. The 5th Infantry Division, Cretan troops, launches a fierce assault. The Cretans charge with fixed bayonets. They scream as they run. They hit the Italian positions with devastating force. The Cretans close to hand-to-hand range. Bayonets thrust. Rifle butts swing. The Italian advance stalls under the Cretan counterattack, then breaks. Italian infantry retreats down the slopes. Greek forces reoccupy their positions. The battle for Klisura Pass continues for 5 days, January 6th through January 11th. Italian forces attack repeatedly. They try different approaches. More artillery, more infantry. Every attack fails. Greek artillery continues to dominate the battlefield. The 75mm guns fire thousands of rounds over 5 days. Greek infantry holds the defensive positions. Greek counterattacks prevent Italian forces from securing the heights. Italian casualties mount horrifically. The Giulia Alpine Division suffers enormous losses. The Lupi di Toscana Division is nearly destroyed. By January 16th, the Lupi di Toscana has only 160 officers and men available from an original strength of over 10,000. Over 4,000 casualties in 10 days. The division has effectively ceased to exist. The 131st Armored Division Centauro is shattered. Dozens of M1340 tanks destroyed or abandoned. Crews killed, wounded, or missing. Morale broken. On January 11th, Greek forces launch their own counterattack. They storm the remaining Italian positions. They recapture ground Italy briefly held. They secure Klisura Pass completely. Italian Supreme Commander Ugo Cavallero watches his offensive collapse. He has thrown 28 divisions, over 500,000 men, against Greek forces. He has deployed Italy's newest tanks. He has committed Italy's best Alpine infantry, and he has failed completely. On February 4th, 1941, the 131st Armored Division, Centauro, is officially withdrawn from the line. The division has taken such heavy losses, it is no longer combat effective. It needs to be completely rebuilt. The M13/40 tanks that survived are shipped back. Some are repaired and sent to North Africa. Others are scrapped. The wrecks left on the road are eventually pushed off and left to rust. The battle for Klisura Pass is over. Greece holds the pass. Italy's offensive has failed. If you find this kind of forgotten history as fascinating as we do, we'd be honored if you'd hit that subscribe button. We believe these stories of courage and sacrifice deserve to be told. And by subscribing, you help us ensure they aren't forgotten. The failure at Klisura Pass was not just a tactical defeat. It was a strategic catastrophe that changed the course of World War II. Benito Mussolini had promised Adolf Hitler that by February 1941, the Albanian front would be secured, that Greek forces would be pushed back to the border, that Germany would not need to intervene in the Balkans. Instead, in mid-January 1941, Greek forces still occupy 1/4 of Albania. Italian divisions are shattered. The M13/40 tanks have been proven vulnerable. Italian morale has collapsed. Hitler is furious. Germany must now divert resources to bail out Italy. Wehrmacht divisions originally allocated for Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union scheduled for May, must be reassigned to the Balkans. Operation Marita, the German invasion of Greece and Yugoslavia, is scheduled for April 1941. The planning requires significant preparation. German forces must be moved from Central Europe through Hungary and Romania. Supply lines must be established. Diplomatic arrangements with Bulgaria must be finalized. Airfields must be prepared for Luftwaffe units. All of this takes time, weeks, months. Operation Barbarossa had been meticulously planned for May 1941. Every aspect was timed to the weather. German forces needed the ground to be dry for their mechanized columns. They needed spring and summer to reach Moscow and Leningrad before winter set in. The entire German war plan depended on defeating the Soviet Union in a single campaigning season. The Balkan diversion delays Barbarossa by 4 to 5 crucial weeks. German forces finally invade the Soviet Union on June 22, 1941. Instead of having 5 months of good weather before winter, they have 4 months. Instead of launching in mid-May with the ground dry, they launch in late June. Wehrmacht divisions advance rapidly at first. They encircle enormous Soviet armies. They capture hundreds of thousands of prisoners. They advance hundreds of kilometers. By autumn, German forces are approaching Moscow. But they run out of time. German forces reach the outskirts of Moscow in early December 1941, just as the Russian winter hits with full catastrophic force. Temperatures drop to -20, -30, -40 degrees Celsius. German vehicles freeze. Engines will not start. Fuel gels. Weapons freeze. Supply lines collapse. The advance stalls within sight of Moscow. The Red Army counterattacks. The Germans are pushed back. They never capture Moscow. Many historians argue that those missing weeks in spring 1941 cost Germany the Battle of Moscow, and losing Moscow cost Germany any chance of defeating the Soviet Union quickly. The war in the East becomes a grinding war of attrition that Germany ultimately loses. The chain of causation runs through Klisura Pass. Italian failure at Klisura in January. German intervention in the Balkans in April. Delay of Barbarossa until late June. Failure to capture Moscow in December. German defeat in the East. History turns on small hinges. The Battle of Klisura Pass was one of those hinges. For Italy, the consequences were immediate and humiliating. The failure at Klisura demonstrated that Italian armor doctrine was fundamentally flawed, that Italian tanks were vulnerable without proper combined arms support, that Italian military planning was inadequate. Italian prestige never recovered. Mussolini's credibility was permanently destroyed. When Germany invaded Greece in April, Wehrmacht forces had to do virtually all of the fighting. Italian units played only supporting roles. The M13/40 tank, which had been Italy's hope for armored dominance, became a symbol of Italian military failure. The tanks that survived Klisura went on to fight in North Africa. There, facing British forces, the M13/40's weaknesses became even more apparent. The 47mm gun could not penetrate the heavy frontal armor of British Matilda infantry tanks. British 2-pounder anti-tank guns could penetrate the M13/40's side and rear armor at ranges exceeding 1,000 meters. The tank's reliability was poor. By late 1942, the M13/40 was completely obsolete. For Greece, Klisura Pass was a triumph. Greek forces had defeated Italy's best effort. They had destroyed Italy's newest tanks. They had held impossible ground against impossible odds. But Greek victory was bittersweet. The battle inflicted heavy casualties. Hundreds of Greek soldiers were killed. Thousands were wounded. Ammunition stocks were severely depleted. Greek divisions were exhausted after 5 months of continuous combat, and Greek commanders knew Germany was coming. When Germany invaded, Greece would face an enemy far more dangerous than Italy. When Germany did invade in April, Greek forces fought for 3 weeks before surrendering. The Wehrmacht was professional and overwhelming, but Greece extracted a price. German paratroopers suffered such catastrophic casualties in the conquest of Crete that Germany never attempted another large-scale airborne operation for the rest of the war. And the delay caused by the Balkan campaign may have cost Germany Moscow and ultimately the war in the East. The story of Klisura Pass is ultimately a story about men who refuse to break. We do not know most of their names. Greek artillery crews who fired thousands of rounds over 5 days. Greek infantry soldiers who held trenches under bombardment. Greek officers who coordinated defenses and launched counterattacks. We know the units: the 1st Infantry Division, the 11th Infantry Division, the 5th Infantry Division from Crete, the 2nd Army Corps under Lieutenant General Dimitrios Papadopoulos. We know some names: Major General Alexandros Papagos, overall Greek commander, who visited the front during the battle. The Cretan soldiers of the 5th Division, who launched the final counterattack on January 11th. But most of the men who fought at Klisura Pass are anonymous: farmers from Thessaly, shepherds from Epirus, shopkeepers from Athens, men who were mobilized in October 1940 and sent to fight in Albanian mountains through a brutal winter. Many died there. Greek casualties at Klisura Pass included hundreds killed, thousands wounded. Artillery crews suffered from Italian counter-battery fire. Infantry units took losses from Italian bombardments. When Cretan troops launched their bayonet charge on January 11th, many did not return. They died with bayonets in their hands on Albanian soil, far from their island home. The Italian soldiers who died at Klisura were also men with names and families. Tank crews burned alive in their M13/40. Alpine infantry from the Julia Division cut down by Greek machine gun fire. Artillerymen killed by Greek counter-battery fire. Young men from Sicily and Tuscany and Lombardy who died far from home in mountains they had never heard of before the war. War consumes men, regardless of which side they fight for. But at Klisura Pass, the Greeks won. And that victory mattered. It mattered because it delayed German intervention in the Balkans. It mattered because it bought time for Britain to prepare defenses. It mattered because it demonstrated to the world that Axis aggression could be resisted. After Klisura, Italian offensive operations in Albania effectively ceased. The front stabilized. Both sides held their positions until Germany invaded Greece in April 1941. After Greece surrendered in late April, the country endured 4 years of brutal occupation under German, Italian, and Bulgarian forces. Hundreds of thousands of Greeks died from famine, reprisal killings, and deportations. When Greece was finally liberated in October 1944, the country descended into civil war that lasted until 1949. The soldiers who fought at Klisura returned to this devastated nation, those who survived. Some joined the resistance. Some fought in the civil war. Some simply tried to rebuild their lives. Lieutenant General Dimitrios Papadopoulos survived the war. He continued to serve in various military and political roles. He died in Athens in 1983 at the age of 93. Major General Alexandros Papagos became a national hero. After the war, he served as Prime Minister of Greece from 1952 to 1955. He died in office in October 1955. The battlefield at Klisura Pass today is quiet. The road through the pass is paved now. The heights where Greek artillery positioned their guns are covered in vegetation. The slopes where Italian infantry attacked are peaceful, but traces remain: shell fragments in the soil, rusted metal from destroyed tanks, stone markers commemorating the fallen. In Greek military cemeteries across Albania, the names of men who died at Klisura are carved into memorial stones. Hundreds of names. Most died in their 20s. Some were teenagers. A few were in their 40s. In Italian military cemeteries, similar stones commemorate Italian dead. Tank crews, Alpine infantry, artillerymen, both sides honored their dead. Both sides remembered the battle. For Italy, Klisura Pass represents failure. It is not prominently celebrated in Italian military history. The M13/40 tank became a symbol of Italian weakness. For Greece, Klisura is one of many victories that winter. It is commemorated, but not as famous as some other battles. But military historians remember Klisura. It is studied in staff colleges as an example of how inferior forces can defeat superior technology through proper use of terrain and well-executed tactics. The lessons of Klisura Pass remain relevant today. Armor is powerful, but armor is not invincible. Terrain restricts mobility. Artillery fire from dominating positions can destroy even modern tanks. Combined arms coordination is essential. Morale and training matter as much as technology. These lessons were learned in blood by Italian tank crews in January 1941, and they are lessons that armies still study today. The battle for Klisura Pass lasted 5 days, January 6th through January 11th, 1941. In that time, Greek forces destroyed or disabled dozens of Italian M13/40 tanks, inflicted thousands of casualties on Italian infantry, and repulsed every Italian attack. The cost was high for both sides, but Greece held the pass, and Italy's offensive, the last major Italian attempt to defeat Greece without German help, failed completely. If this story moved you, please hit that like button. Every click tells the algorithm that this piece of history is worth remembering. We're dedicated to rescuing these forgotten stories from the archives, stories of ordinary men who did extraordinary things. If you want to join us on this mission, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment with your city or country and tell us if someone in your family served in World War II. These stories connect us all. The soldiers who fought at Klisura Pass, Greek and Italian alike, were men caught in circumstances beyond their control. They fought for their countries. They did their duty. Many died far from home. They deserve to be remembered. Thank you for ensuring that the Greek artillery crews and infantry soldiers who held Klisura Pass and the Italian tank crews and Alpine soldiers who fought there do not disappear into silence. They were men. They had names and families and hopes for the future. The war took that from them. The least we can do is remember their sacrifice.